G'day, I'm Tim Thompson. Welcome to the midweek review. I've just been given the Bluetti EB55 to give it a bit of a review around the farm. So I thought we'd get stuck into some common tasks that I need corded power tools for, and then I'll put it through its paces with a bit of a torture test and see what happens when I connect it to things I really shouldn't. Then I'm going to have a look at its further uses in the house when we have those bad storms that knock out the power for a week or more, because I think this thing has a really good place in our overall emergency management plan. And my goodness, isn't that cute? Weighing in at just over 7 kilos, I'm registering about 7.4 on these scales here. The Bluetti EB55 uses LiPo batteries to make storing of energy a long-term proposition, and it packs a real punch with a lot of flexibility. So is the EB55 the death of generators on the farm? Generators are an invaluable piece of equipment, particularly these days when we have significant storms that can take out the power for 8 or 9 days. I'm also really fond of the idea of being able to use things like welders in remote locations away from the shed so that you can complete repairs in place. But there's a couple of issues with these generators for being your sole backup power supply. Those mainly being the fact that they're a little bit awkward to get around the place and they're a bit loud. So if you need to run the internet all night or keep your fridges and freezers going overnight, you're going to have a cacophony of noise while you're trying to sleep. So there's probably room for a secondary backup power supply that doesn't require the big daddy for the simple jobs. And that's what I'm having a look at today. Rather than going for a smaller generator for about the same price, I'm having a go at the Bluetti battery-powered backup. So before we put this thing on charge, let's have a look at a few of the features. To begin with, we've got a wireless charging output on the top. That's going to be handy for charging your mobile phones. The input here allows you to charge the actual device itself using either DC from a car or from a solar panel, or AC using the adapter provided. Down the bottom we've got our power outputs. So we've got one USB-C port, 4 USB ports, 2 normal wall ports, then you get your 12 volt outlet so that you can run things like car fridges off your cigarette lighter socket, and 2 pin 12 volt outlets, and then you get your standard charging point for the wall combined with your adapter. So trying out the Bluetti EB55, first up, let's see if we can crutch some sheep with it. Turn on the 240 volt power, plug her in, and away we go. So let's start the pet sheep beauty routine. So for crutching pet sheep, fantastic. And it doesn't make any noise like a generator would, which would further stress the livestock. Ripper. So it's done all right with the sheep shears. Let's try something a little more heavy duty. So the EB55 certainly pulled a lot more watts when I was using the angle grinder, but I didn't notice any discernible lack of performance in the hand tool, and it seemed to cope with driving the grinder quite well. It cut through the metal as you would expect. Now let's go and try this as a battery charging station when we're doing work down the fence line. The power bank didn't skip a beat charging up the batteries, and it means that you don't have to go buying all these different kinds of batteries for all your tools. You can just charge them on the go in the paddock without having to go back to the shed. So not bad. Next up, a little bit of a torture test for this. Now this couldn't be a Tim Thompson review if I didn't take things a little bit too far. Normally I cut up my kindling on a jig using a chainsaw. I thought, why not try the EB55 with an old school circular saw that pulls 1750 watts. And this was also a test on whether it would indeed trip the mechanism and look after the batteries. And it looks like the old saw has overloaded the power bank. She's switched off and shut down. Of course, if you want to run tools like this, there is a Bluetti model that's a little bit more expensive that's rated for about 2000 watts. So it'd be worth having a look at that one. This was really just me being an idiot so you don't have to, and checking the safety features. They worked! I reckon the EB55 is a perfect emergency backup for things around the farm like brooding boxes as well. If you lose the power and you've got young chicks in a brooder box, that can be life-threatening to those birds. So having the EB55 on hand, it's so light you can just take it down to the shed really easily and anyone can set it up. Even one of the kids. It's as simple as plug it in, turn it on, and your birds will stay nice and warm and perfectly safe. Despite the Bluetti being really useful out the paddock and in the shed, I'm actually going to keep it on top of the fridge in the kitchen. Because where I actually see this Bluetti being of great use to me is in storm blackouts and outages. It's always terrible weather when that sort of thing happens, and the last thing you want to be doing is running out to the shed and pulling out a really heavy, difficult generator to get set up. This is going to get you through the night, run your fridge, keep your perishables clean, get some lights going, and get you through till the morning. It'll only take a couple of hours to charge back up again off the generator, and you're right to go for the following night. I can see this being a really useful little tool, and it's running our main fridge and our light at the same time without too much difficulty. And I think if I was buying one, I'd probably go for the larger model in the EB55, and that'd probably be able to run that circular saw that I used to torture this one with. So all in all, it's a pretty darn good little piece of kit, and it's got lots of features and lots of functions that'll keep most people more than happy with their backup power supply. Most of us with farms tend to run a home office as well. When the power goes out for 5 or 6 days, it's really good to have a backup power supply that's not roaring outside your window and distracting you. At the moment, I've got the Bluetti charging my mobile phone, running my computer, running the internet, and I've got 3 different devices charging off USBs. And it's only pulling around about 12 watts of power, so that's going to last me for hours and hours and hours of productive work that I would lose under normal circumstances if there's a power outage. The battery is apparently good for 2,500 cycles, which means that you can recharge it about 2,500 times. So if you're going to get one of these things, it will comfortably run your home office and it will last you pretty much your lifetime because you're not going to have power outages that often. Like most things, there is a bit of maintenance with this, and that is charging up the battery to 80% every 6 months or so, just to keep the battery at the right level for storage, because the LiPo batteries inside need to remain charged while stored, or else you're going to end up with less life out of the product. So in terms of a backup battery for your office, it's an absolute game changer. If you want to find out more about this product or you want to purchase it, there's a link in the description. And if you like this sort of video, don't forget, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and there's plenty more content and reviews on products like this on timthompson.ag. I'll catch you next week for the midweek review. And hey, congratulations to Xavier King for subscribing to timthompson.ag. Look out for more competitions in the future, and Xavier, I hope you get a lot of use out of that fantastic fence stirrup product.